To my daughter Marie, if you ever feel small or afraid, remember this: fear is not weakness. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping you alive. There are places in this world that carry silence like a weapon, the kind of silence that feels like it's listening to you breathe. I never believed an animal could look through you until I saw those eyes. I thought I was the hunter that day. I was wrong. The morning started like any other, heavy with heat, even before the sun cleared the trees. I had my gear packed in the truck by 5 a.m., the thermos filled with black coffee, and the rods tied down in the back. I'd planned to fish the Bayou Bend near Jaguar, Louisiana. Not a tourist spot, just a twisted stretch of swamp water my father used to take me to when I was a boy. Mist floated like ghosts above the surface, and the air stank of mud and leaves and old water. I remember that smell now more than anything. I parked at the end of the dirt trail, boots crunching soft on broken twigs, and made my way through the reeds with practiced ease. The cypress stood like ancient bones, knotted and wet, their roots reaching up from the black water like claws. It was quiet, too quiet, and I remember the sudden thought that maybe something was wrong, but I brushed it off like a mosquito on my neck and kept walking. The first odd thing I noticed was the birds, or better said, the lack of them. Normally the swamp was filled with noise, herons flapping away, woodpeckers tapping, frogs groaning under the trees. But that day, everything felt muted, like the whole place was holding its breath. I paused once, stood perfectly still, and listened. Nothing, not even the buzz of bugs. The air felt thick, not just with humidity but with something else I couldn't name, a kind of pressure, like when a storm's coming and the dogs go hide under the porch. I told myself I was just tired, maybe a little spooked from a dream I couldn't remember, but still my hand went to the knife on my belt, thumb resting on the worn edge of the handle. I laughed a little at myself and kept moving, deeper into the shade. By 6 a.m., I was waist-deep in brackish water, casting out near a downed tree that always hid catfish. The water barely moved, just lazy ripples here and there, the kind that come from turtles surfacing or something sliding off a branch. I got a bite early, reeled in a blue cat, maybe 4 pounds, and strung it up beside me. That little victory calmed me some, made me think maybe the silence was just part of the charm. I settled in on a wide root, took a sip of lukewarm coffee, and let the stillness settle over me like a blanket. But something kept nagging at me. A scent, not rot, not fish, but musk. Strong and sharp, like wet fur left too long in the sun. It was faint, but it wasn't normal. I stood up slowly, scanned the tree line, and saw nothing. Just shadows and trees and 1,000 places to hide. I kept telling myself it was probably a raccoon or even a stray dog. I've run into wild hogs out here before, mean bastards, but they make noise, and they don't stalk. Whatever was watching me, because by now I knew something was, it wasn't making a sound. That silence pressed on me more and more until even the splash of my own cast felt too loud. Then I saw it. Just a flicker. 2 golden eyes low to the ground, barely catching the light through a break in the trees. At first, I thought it might have been a big catfish splashing near the surface. But no, those eyes didn't blink, they stared. And they were high up, level with mine, even though they were deep in the underbrush. My pulse started to race, the coffee turned sour in my gut. I backed away 1 step, 2, and then everything went quiet again. I never knew jaguars lived in Louisiana. Hell, most folks still don't believe it. They say they're extinct this far north, but when you've stared one in the face, you stop arguing with maps and books. I didn't see its body yet, just the eyes, steady and calm, like it had all the time in the world. Then a rustle, heavy, deliberate. It moved with weight and purpose, but no rush. I froze, breath shallow, fingers fumbling for the folding knife on my belt. I should have turned and run. But part of me, some old stubborn part raised on stories and pride, wanted to stand my ground. I figured maybe if I looked bigger, louder, it would back off, but I'd never dealt with anything like this. This wasn't a deer or a boar. This was a predator, and I was already too deep. I took 3 slow steps backward, trying not to slip on the slick mud. My boots sank an inch with every move. The eyes followed me, always level, never blinking. My skin prickled with heat. My ears rang. I heard nothing else, not even my own breath. Then it stepped forward, just one slow, quiet step, and I saw the full shape emerge from the trees. Massive, shoulders like a pit bull but stretched with impossible grace, black rosettes over deep golden fur. Its tail flicked once, then again, like it was measuring me. I dropped my tackle box without meaning to. The clang echoed through the swamp like a gunshot. The jaguar flinched, not from fear, but readiness. It lowered its body slightly, ears flattening. I'd seen house cats do the same just before pouncing on a toy, except this was no toy. This was a killing machine, and I was the only thing between it and the open water. I turned, heart hammering, and started toward the path I'd come in from, not running, not yet, just moving with purpose. The kind of walk you do when you don't want to trigger instinct. But it followed. I could hear the soft squish of paws in mud behind me, perfectly matched to my steps. Not rushing, just tracking. I started to jog. The path was slick and narrow, roots everywhere. I couldn't afford to fall. My breath was ragged now, loud in my ears, and I didn't dare look back. But I could feel it, closer, closer. I made it to the edge of the water where the boat was tied up and dared a glance behind me. Nothing. No eyes, no sound, just the swamp. But that didn't calm me. It made it worse, because I knew it hadn't given up. It was waiting, watching, choosing its moment. That was the last thought I had before the silence shattered, before the weight of it landed on my back like a goddamn truck. It hit me from behind. No warning, no growl, just impact. Like a boulder wrapped in muscle, it slammed me chest first into the mud, my face scraping across cypress roots and rot. My mouth filled with dirt and water as I tried to scream, but all I got was darkness and pressure. Its weight crushed the air out of my lungs. My ribs cracked. I heard them. It didn't roar. It didn't howl. It breathed, deep and slow. A wet snort right by my ear. I twisted, kicking, clawing, trying to turn over, but its paw pinned my shoulder with impossible force. I could feel the claws, not tearing, not yet, just pressing, like it was holding me in place. My knife was still on my belt, but my arm was trapped under me. I couldn't reach anything, and then I felt its teeth. They didn't sink in right away. It opened its jaws against the back of my neck, and for a second it just held me there, like it was testing, measuring. I knew if it bit down, it'd crush my spine. That was the moment I realized I might die right there in the mud, alone, nameless. I stopped moving, not from surrender, from calculation. I needed 1 second, one shift of weight, one mistake from it, and I could maybe roll, maybe reach the blade. It adjusted its grip, and that was the window. I bucked my hips hard, twisting sideways. One shoulder came free, and I jammed my elbow back into its ribs with everything I had. It grunted, a sharp, canine sound, and that was enough. I rolled fully over, hand snapping to the knife. I got it halfway out of the sheath before it slammed me again, this time from the front. I barely saw it, just a blur of fur and eyes and teeth. It hit me like a train, and we rolled together into the water. The cold hit me first, then the fire. Its teeth tore into my left thigh, deep and brutal, like a chainsaw with purpose. I screamed, not just from the pain, but from the sheer realness of it. This wasn't a nightmare. It was happening. I stabbed blindly, once, twice, not knowing if I hit flesh or water or tree root. The jaguar roared then, full volume, right in my face. Its breath was hot and metallic, like old blood. It let go of my leg, only to bite down on my forearm. It shook me like a rag. My bones popped in the socket. The knife slipped from my hand and vanished into the black water. I punched it in the eye with my free hand again and again. It didn't flinch. I felt skin split across my knuckles, fingernails crack against its skull. Somewhere in that mess, I remembered my grandfather's words from when I was 10. If a cat ever takes you, go for the eyes or the windpipe. Nothing else matters. I couldn't see the throat, but the eyes were right there. One of them locked onto mine. Yellow, steady, ancient. I jammed 2 fingers into it past the lid. It screamed, a horrible, almost human sound, and let go. I scrambled back in the water, trying to crawl, trying not to black out. Blood poured from my leg in thick pulses, warm against the cold bayou. My vision narrowed. I could barely hear now, just the thud of my heartbeat, louder than everything. I turned over and saw it, just feet away, crouched and snarling. Its face was streaked with blood, mine or its. Its left eye was shut tight, oozing something dark. I was dying. I knew that. I could feel my body going cold. But something in me, something stubborn, mean and desperate, stood up. I grabbed the nearest stick I could find, just a fat, broken limb from a cypress root, and held it like a spear. The Jaguar lunged again. No hesitation this time. It was angry, hurt, and wild. I thrust the stick forward, both hands gripping it like a bat. It hit the cat in the shoulder, barely slowing it, but it was enough. The force knocked it sideways, and it slipped in the muck, its back leg giving out for a second. I used that second to move, not far, just enough to find a slope up the bank. I crawled, dragging my leg behind me like dead weight. The world tilted and spun. My blood left trails on leaves and roots. I could hear it behind me, not chasing now, just pacing, waiting, watching again. It didn't need to rush. It knew I couldn't go far. And then, out of nowhere, came the sound of barking, loud, furious. I thought I was hallucinating until I saw them. 2 hounds crashing through the trees, lean and wild-eyed, snarling like devils. I didn't recognize them. Strays maybe, or swamp dogs from some nearby shack. They didn't hesitate. One went straight for the Jaguar's flank, biting deep, while the other circled, yapping like mad. The Jaguar turned, furious, and slashed at the first dog, throwing it sideways with a single swipe. But the second one latched onto its tail, pulling hard. That moment, that single moment, gave me a chance. I reached the base of a cypress and pulled myself up just enough to lean back. I grabbed a sharp branch jutting from the trunk and broke it off. My hands were numb, my arms shaking, but I held it like a dagger. If it came again, I'd fight. That was all I had left, but it didn't. The Jaguar backed away slowly, tail lashing, eye half shut. Blood soaked its side. It glanced at me, then the dogs, then me again, and vanished into the brush like smoke. Gone. Just like that. I collapsed. Fully this time. My body stopped listening. My head fell back against the bark, and all I saw was sky. The dogs didn't come to me. They circled a few times, then disappeared as quickly as they'd come. Ghosts, maybe, or just creatures with better instincts than me. I lay there for what felt like hours, drifting in and out, shivering. The pain came in waves now, sharp, then distant, like lightning underwater. I remember thinking I might just close my eyes and let go. No shame in that. I'd fought. I'd done more than most could. But then I saw her face, Marie's, clear as day, laughing on the porch with a popsicle, hair stuck to her cheeks from the heat. I gritted my teeth. No, not yet. And that was when I started to crawl. I don't remember much about the rescue, just flashes. A man's voice yelling from far away, boots in mud, the taste of metal in my mouth. Then cold hands on my shoulders and the sound of a motorboat. Pain everywhere, like my body had been dipped in fire. I must have passed out again, because the next thing I remember was white light. Hospital lights. A beeping machine. My mouth was dry, my throat full of tubes, and the sharp smell of antiseptic hit harder than the blood ever did. I tried to sit up, and my body screamed in protest. My leg felt like it had been welded back together. My arm was heavy, wrapped tight from wrist to elbow. I couldn't speak. I couldn't cry. So I just listened to the machines and the murmur of voices outside my door. The doctors told me later I'd lost nearly 40% of my blood. They didn't think I'd make it through the night. The bite on my thigh had torn through muscle and nicked an artery, and my forearm had been fractured in 3 places. I needed 2 surgeries in less than 24 hours. They gave me transfusions, antibiotics, painkillers, and something stronger to keep me from screaming when I woke up fully. I was in the ICU for 5 days. The nurses were kind, but I could see the way they looked at me, like I was some cautionary tale. One even asked quietly, "Was it a bear?" I just shook my head. It was easier than explaining. When I finally got to see myself in a mirror, I stared for almost an hour. My left leg looked like it had been sewn from scrap leather. My arm was swollen, bruised, and stiff. But it was the look in my eyes that scared me most. Hollow animal. The nightmares started in the hospital. At first they were flashes, yellow eyes, wet leaves, the sound of bone cracking. But then they got worse. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, heart pounding, screaming into the sterile dark. The nurses had to sedate me twice. I started hearing the breathing again, not mine, not human, just over my shoulder every time the lights went out. I kept asking for the TV to stay on, even when it was muted. I just needed noise. The silence had become unbearable. Every quiet second brought me back to the moment right before it attacked. That swamp silence, that waiting. I couldn't close my eyes without feeling its weight on me. They sent a wildlife expert to talk to me. Some guy from Baton Rouge. Said he wanted to document the incident. I asked him if he believed me. He smiled in that polite way people do when they don't. Then I showed him the bite marks, the claw patterns. He went pale. Said nothing for a long time. Finally, he admitted there'd been rumors, unconfirmed sightings of large cats around the Atchafalaya, possibly escaped exotics or undocumented migration, but nothing on record, nothing official. I told him I didn't give a damn about what was official. I'd felt it breathe, I'd bled for it. He took photos, thanked me, and left. I never saw him again. 3 weeks in the hospital, then another 2 at home, barely able to stand. My brother Jake moved in to help me. He cooked, cleaned, changed my bandages, but we didn't talk much. Every time he asked about that day, I just shut down. I couldn't find the words. One morning, I caught him standing by the kitchen window, looking out toward the woods with his jaw clenched. "It's not right," he said. "Something that powerful, that quiet, it's still out there." I didn't respond, because deep down, I knew it was. That cat hadn't fled, it had spared me. There's a difference, and that difference haunted me. I started to hear it again, not in dreams, in waking moments. A breath in the hallway, a rustle by the shed, eyes in the tree line. But when I looked, nothing was there. The prints came first, deep, round, unmistakable, left in the mud by the creek behind my house. Then the smell, musk, like wet fur and iron. My brother said it was probably just a bobcat. I didn't argue. But one night I found a dead deer near the edge of the yard, throat torn out, body untouched, not eaten, just killed. A message. I stared at it for a long time, then turned around and locked every door in the house. I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. I couldn't go near the water anymore. The thought of stepping back into the swamp made my stomach twist. I tried. Once. Drove out toward the old trail, parked, stepped out. I made it 20 feet before I froze. My legs locked, my hands went numb, and I started shaking. Not just fear, pure, uncontrollable terror. I dropped to my knees and vomited. There, in the brush, I thought I saw it again, just for a second, the shape of a big body behind the trees. But when I looked again, it was gone. Whether it was real or not didn't matter. The fear was. I never went back. I started seeing a therapist. She asked me what I was most afraid of. I told her the truth, that it let me live. She looked confused. I explained it slowly. That cat could have killed me. It had me. I didn't escape. It chose to stop. And I don't know why. That question kept me up more than the pain ever did. Why spare me? Was it wounded? Did it get bored? Or was it something else, some flicker of understanding in its ancient brain? The therapist said maybe I was projecting, that I needed closure. But I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for balance, and that felt harder than survival. One afternoon, I took out the bloodied clothes they'd returned to me from the hospital, the shredded jeans, the torn jacket, my boots, still crusted in bayou mud. I sat on the porch and stared at them, sunlight cutting through the holes like scars on fabric. I held the jacket to my face, smelled the copper and swamp rot, and I didn't cry. Not exactly. I just let the memory exist, let it hurt. That was the first time I felt something close to peace, because I knew then that thing didn't just leave a mark on my skin. It changed me. And some part of me, some old primal part, understood it. 6 months later, I moved out of the house near the woods. Too many shadows, too much silence. I bought a trailer near Houma, not far from the docks, where the air smelled of salt and shrimp instead of mud and blood. I took a job sorting nets and repairing old motors, work that kept my hands busy and my mind just quiet enough. My limp was permanent now. Every step reminded me of the weight that had crushed my leg. Some days I welcomed the pain. It was honest. The stares came and went. Most folks didn't ask about the scars. The ones who did, I just told them it was a gator. It was easier that way. The truth sounded like madness. Marie visited every weekend. She never said anything about my new habits, how I always kept the porch light on, how I never turned my back to the tree line. But I think she understood. Kids know more than we give them credit for. One evening she found my sketchbook. I'd been drawing it for weeks. The Jaguar in pieces, the eyes, the teeth, the shape of it standing just beyond reach. She looked at the page for a long time and asked, "Is that the thing that hurt you?" I said yes. She nodded once, and then, so simply asked, "Did it mean to?" That question stopped something in me. Not just because I didn't know, but because I wanted to. I started reading about big cats, obsessively at first, their habits, their territories, their behaviors in attack. Jaguars rarely kill for sport. They hunt for survival, for necessity. They're ambush predators, yes, but precise, efficient. The more I read, the more I realized how deliberate that attack had been. Not random, not frenzy. Something had pushed it. Hunger, maybe. Fear. Or maybe I had simply walked into a place I didn't belong. That was the hardest truth to accept. That out there, I was the intruder, not it. We always assume we own the wild. Until it answers back. That thought changed me. It didn't erase the fear, but it gave it shape. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as someone who was warned. Scarred, yes, but spared. And I needed to know why. Not out of vengeance, out of reverence. I wanted to see it again, one last time, on my terms. So I went back. Against every instinct, every warning, I drove out toward the old trail before dawn. This time I carried no rifle, no knife, just a flare gun and a single flare. Not to defend, to be seen. I reached the same clearing where it first showed itself. The water was still. The air was thicker than I remembered. I stood there for hours, silent, listening. Every leaf rustle, every distant splash made my heart jump, but I didn't move. And just before dusk, I saw it, across the water, perched on a low root, half in shadow. The jaguar, or maybe another. But the eyes were the same. Golden, steady. It didn't growl. It didn't move. It just watched. We stayed like that. Two beings from different worlds, bound by one violent moment, and for the first time I didn't feel fear. I felt understood. I raised the flare slowly, lit it. The red glow shot into the air, hissing like a snake. The light painted the swamp in strange, flickering colors. The cat blinked once and then slipped back into the brush. Gone. I stayed until the last ember of light faded. Then I turned and walked back. No rush, no panic, just breath and step. I'd come looking for closure, but what I found was something different, a kind of truce, a recognition that we had both survived each other. And that was enough. Since then, I've changed how I live. I speak in classrooms now, to kids mostly, about the wild, about respect, about instinct. I don't show them the scars, I show them the sketches. I tell them not to fear the forest, but to never enter it without listening first. There's a pulse to those places, and if you ignore it, it notices. I also helped fund a small reserve near the Atchafalaya, not to trap, to protect. Not just the animals, the silence too, the kind that warns before it strikes, the kind that deserves reverence. People ask me if I ever found closure. I tell them no. I found something better, balance. I no longer need to explain what happened. The pain isn't gone, but it belongs to me now, and I've stopped waiting for it to return, because it already lives in me, in every quiet moment, in every pause between steps. The wild doesn't just exist out there, it changes you, leaves you altered, even if no one else sees it, especially if no one else sees it. That day, the swamp didn't just tear through my flesh, it carved something into my soul, a warning, a memory, a gift I never asked for, but one I carry with both hands. The Jaguar didn't finish me, it marked me. And somehow, in a way I still don't fully understand, it spared me too. And that is why I never say I survived the swamp. I say I was chosen by it.